Do you even remember how to do this? You weren't here last week.
Man, no. I don't know. It's
been a while.
Apparently 10 days or however many days between videos is too many. So.
Hey guys, we're back. Lords of War crew here. Chris and Jay.
That's right.
Woo!
Yeah.
Returning. Jay was at Adepticon last week.
I was at Adepticon, and I'm still recovering.
He's still, yeah. That's 5-day conventions. You need about a week to recover after.
Yeah. It is long days, not enough sleep, a lot of alcohol. So yeah, it tends to do a number. And then you get back and you get the con flu. So
yeah. You inevitably carry some massive mutated mega bug with you.
Turns out if you jam 8,000 people in a space that probably should only handle 5,000, but max it gets.
Yeah, nobody called the fire department.
No, nobody can. No. But anyway, you should go though.
You should go. It's actually a blast.
Yeah.
So today we wanted to talk about something a little bit more philosophical, and this is just a topic that kind of comes up a lot in the shop. Customers chatting about their own personal hobbies, and I'm sure like anytime you go to like a big convention, it's something you think about too. When you're playing a whole bunch of strangers over a weekend, and you're thinking about the game you're playing and whether you're having fun or not, I guess is sort of like a thing you kind of ask yourself sometimes. And that's sort of like the idea that classic wargaming, so the evolution of when you've seen it like come up through the 70s and 80s, the birth of Games Workshop, and what sort of like it is mutated into today, and we call modern wargaming, and what's happened to it, and how's it evolved, and what are the consequences of that. So I guess where my head's at is, as a young boy, when I was 11, I got into this hobby. I fell in love. I didn't fall in love with a game. I fell in love with an idea, and that idea was painted armies looking a certain way and kind of like almost just like displayed on a battlefield.
This is a sales pitch, by the way. This is Chris giving his... he's trying to sell Games Workshop to Games Workshop.
Yeah.
He's trying to be the new CEO of Games Workshop. Sorry.
It's my resume in a weird way. Yeah,
that was really well put.
Yeah.
That was we just need the weird... It's like an Apple commercial,
Yeah.
How does it make you feel?
It's an idea. Yeah. But it's true. Like that's the thing that I fell in love with. And for me and my brother, when we were doing the hobby, as you know, when we were really young, and even as we got a little older, it was always about like trying to recreate what we saw in those books, what we saw other like people at the shop doing, and we very rarely played the game. The game was sort of like this like final piece to the presentation of it all. It was like the culmination of a thing, and I think, you know, you and I, we carry that tradition on, I feel like, in a big way, where the game really is like this cap-off thing to like doing the thing we love, which is like building and painting miniatures and armies and stuff like that.
That's why we play so little. I mean, we play an okay amount, but mostly because there's a lot of like, the art, everything needs to be like painted and done up, and it is kind of the end of the, the last thing that we get to.
So I feel like, and this is obviously a big opinion thing, right? Those early editions of Warhammer, those early editions of 40K had a lot more of that sort of less consideration of fairness and balance and all those things that people demand and ask for in a modern war game, which I'm not saying that's a bad thing. There's no value judgment here on that. And there was more just like, I guess, essence of like storytelling, and you look at a picture, and like everyone from that time can picture what was in the Space Marine Codex in a big picture of an army. What did an army look like?
Yeah.
Well, it had 2 tactical squads. It had a command squad. It had a commander. It had a Terminator squad or 2. It had an assault squad. It had a Razorback. Like there's just things you picture in your mind when you think of how to build an army, right? And I'm not saying that this like perfect kind of picture of an experience ever really was real in anyone's wargaming, but I feel a little bit like modern wargaming has lost a little bit of that and traded a lot of it for things like, well, if 2 strangers are going to come together and play a game, which is the big thing, right? We're pushing is like the modern, like just playing games at a shop, playing at a tournament, You've seen, like, we've talked about this in other videos, like the game, like the almost like the video gamification of Warhammer.
Yeah. Massive.
And I guess what I'm getting at here is how much experience like the experience that we traded for just outcome chasing, I guess, when we're playing a game. Like, people are playing a game for the outcome versus the experience of, like, enjoying the game, the cinematic moments of the game, that sort of thing. And that's where I think you're looking at, like, classic wargaming versus, like, a more modern wargaming. What do you think about that?
No, it's true. I mean, even here's a quick like thing that just popped into my head about this is like, the fact that when we play, what do? We have our, like, apps out and our phones out, and we're, like, using sophisticated apps to track points and secondaries and tertiaries, and it's all about, like when people play a league game at the store, they're like, oh, I won 97 to 66. It's like we're tracking so much.
And I didn't hear a thing about what happened in the game.
No.
Like,
no.
Oh man, it was so last minute I last cannoned his Land Raider and it blew up, and it was such a cool thing.
Yeah.
I won 96 to 60.
That's right. Yeah.
That was the game.
That was the game. That's just it's just so dry.
And you're like, was there a memorable moment that you had in that?
Yeah.
Like,
and occasionally some guys would come up and be like, oh, it was 66 to 65. And I'm like, oh wow, okay. So it was a die roll maybe. But generally speaking, it's they just come, they hand in their slip and or give me the score, and that's it, and sometimes it feels maybe this is why, a small tangent, why maybe whether it's good or not, something about Sigmar that's special is the turn orders and things like that. And I find the game's a little more in the balance, but that's another thing. But generally, I think to Chris's point is, our games are very they become kind of cut and dry. We stop thinking about the crazy things. And then as he was talking, giving the introduction there, that I was thinking of also, like, maybe why we're so in love with games like Warhammer Fantasy Battles or the second edition 40k Rogue Trader, which were so loaded with, like, extra fun rules. Those games weren't balanced at all. They were just like, they tried to write rules for every little contingency because they wanted to give players that fun moment where what happens when you flank something, or when your hero does a challenge, or in the case of second ed 40k, anything at, like, throwing a vortex grenade, or having or all the kooky rules that orcs came with. It's kind of like, I think we have very fond memories of those games, not just because we were younger at the time. Obviously, nostalgia is a thing, but
for sure.
The rule sets were created to give you all these chances to do these fun, wacky things, and then the result was the result. You remembered the game more than the result. Whereas now it's very video gamey. It's like, play the match, win the match, move on to the next match.
And I find my gaming memories now, like, I still have very vivid memories of, like, things happening in Warhammer Fantasy Battle games. Mm-hmm. Distinctive things, like the fact that your, like, mage could, like, nuke himself so easily.
Yeah.
Like, I played Tomb Kings and Ark, and, like, maybe some games he would just blow up or whatever.
Just blow up. Yeah.
You had those moments where, like, a cannon just did this, like, heroic thing and, like, shot 500 points off of a table, and it was just, like, so ridiculous, right? You had those world-ending spells where, like, you could just, like, blow.
I still have.
Right?
One of my fondest, weirdest memories was not that long, maybe 10 years ago. Or it was a friend of ours named Brad. We were playing in this hobby league, and he had the Skaven army, and I had no business winning this game because he had, like, used the big spell, and he killed most of my chosen warriors. It was the dreaded 13th, so he literally turns your dudes into rats. It's very powerful. And I had 4 dudes in that unit charge, break a unit of 40 rats, kill their general explodes, because that's what Skaven generals do, and then cause a ripple effect and break his army. And it was like
4 chaos guys.
And I just feel like that just does not happen. Actually, neither of the games, neither 40k or just Sigmar, there is no breaking in them. It's just just like an attritional thing that happens.
Like, I get it.
So, like, you'll never have these, like, 2 guys do that. Really.
100%, because you've chosen to, for the sake of balance and fairness, and, like, eliminating those necessary, like, big swings. Yeah. You've trimmed the edges of the game.
That's right.
Down to make it more towards a median, right? Mm-hmm. Which means, a last cannon does, or weapons do, like, D3+1 now, instead of just doing, like, a ton of damage, but like, they might do nothing or a lot, right?
Yeah.
So you've gotten to a middle ground, which there's something lost there, I think.
And then you see it in army list building. It's all about finding, like, the few things that are, like, bulletproof and just taking as many of them as you can. I mean, that's plagued 40k for a little while.
Sure.
It's not necessarily new.
You know,
but I'm seeing it in most games.
It's hard to blame Games Workshop for the proliferation of the internet, like probably causing that like to happen where people can trade lists and, you know.
People want to know who's winning with what and what the best things are. And that'll happen, I guess, anyway, because whatever meta is established, people will basically distill it to the best and worst, you know. But yeah, everything, like we said, everything is almost spreadsheetified. The whole thing is you can almost plot into a spreadsheet and generate percentages based on how effective this and that is, and I don't know. It's lost a bit of the
soul
magic.
almost. Or something. Yeah, like a little bit of the soul. And
I mean, look, I played over Adepticon. I played 5 games at a bonus game because I joined in my friend's team tournament because one of the guys had to go pick up another award.
John.
Yeah, you should check it out. Sir John the Ho. Yeah, he won the Atomic Mass Award, the best in show again. Anyway. He doesn't need any more praise from us. But anyway, so I got to play a doubles game. The doubles was still fun. I think every game was fun, but still very fun because I think people don't seem to care. I think team events still have a bit of that. It hasn't lost its magic there. People seem to kind of like just make combo armies together, and no one really cares if they win or lose. And silly things happen in that game. Actually, a lot of really epic things occurred in that game, which was fun. But I would say in the singles games, I had couple memorable games, but I feel like I attribute that still mostly to the Age of Sigmar game mechanic. The turn sequence helped with that because the games would have been probably, gone just a more linear route had they not added that.
Yeah,
but it was still fun. Opponents were still fun, but yeah, I think I don't know. I'm gonna remember maybe 2 moments in all my games there, so it's not like I don't know. I feel like in
and it's a lot to ask for every game to have a moment. I'm not suggesting that that's the case either.
But no games were blowouts, so that was the one thing for sure. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's good or bad.
And I said it's not a value judgment. I just think this is where we're at now. We're going to talk about it in another video about sort of how Games Workshop presents their games and how that probably can trend towards this sort of becoming the mainstream thing. And that's sort of like the idea that you have three types of ways to play: match play, narrative play, and open play. And one of them gets talked about more than other. I wonder if you can guess which one that is. Like I guess how do you guys feel? I definitely know that this classic type of wargaming is still alive. You do see it. We see a lot of our customers, like at the end of the day, and I try to remind people this, the people that play regularly are in the minority in the hobby. And the people that are just like collecting and painting miniatures are usually making up the vast majority of people that are doing the hobby. And it's not that they're not wanting to play, it's that their goal is to one day play. And I think that is very much in line with like classic wargaming, where you're doing a hobby and the game is sort of like this really beautiful end cap to finishing it and doing it, right? So
yeah, I don't know why we don't see as many narrative things. I think everyone is just kind of like as soon as you buy into Warhammer, even though there's other options, you tend to just play stores just push people to people, and maybe we're guilty of it. People ask like, what kind of events you have, and you're like, well, we have leagues and tournaments.
Yeah.
And all of this was designed even many years ago when they had the kind of they didn't call it match play. They just Games Workshop didn't. They just when you were at Games Workshops, they were just like, well, you build 1,000 points or 2,000 points, and here's some loose army structure, and it was designed to be so that you and someone could just, even though you didn't know each other, have a framework that kept it sort of balanced. For whatever reason, people didn't. And again, maybe the internet is to blame, because I feel like the way it used to work is there would only be a handful of major events in any given year, and if you happen to live near one, you could go to one, and it wasn't like you could get any intel on it. You just kind of brought what you thought was good.
Yeah.
So like when Toronto would have big GTs that Games Workshop would sanction or run, they had the various ones they would run over the many years. It was like the people didn't, the gamers knew each other a bit, but they didn't really like share everything, and it was you'd hear about, well, who won this, and you're like, so it was always some wacky thing. There was no defined this is the thing that everyone takes, and it was kind of cool. But now the information's like freely available. People will even like this is telling, because even fresh like customers are relatively new to the hobby. They'll come in and look at the Warhammer wall and they'll just say like, "Oh, I heard that this isn't very good or this is bad," and you're like, "Man, you haven't played it all." I'm like, you don't even know the context of why it's not good. You just heard it wasn't good, you know. And I'll be like, "Well, do you like the models? Like, what's your goal here?" I'm like, "How much have you played?" And is your goal to play in these? Is your goal to win in these things? You know, and I have to try and like set expectations that like, yeah, if you want to get good, get good. That's fine. It's a long road. It's not something for everyone. And I don't know if it's really worth it either, to be honest. I mean, the little bit of, fame you get, if any at all, is I think, I don't know if it's really worth the time, unless you really enjoy it, which is fair.
For sure, yeah.
But, you know, you can still just play what you want and enjoy it. I mean, I'm living proof of that. Like, I went 1-4 in my singles. I think I got a bit unlucky. I could have probably finished 3-2, but it's not. I don't care. You know, it was still a good time. I'm not going to bid my army.
It's not on fire right now.
Not on fire. No. I wasn't really. Most of the mistakes, you know, are probably on myself, and maybe I could have like improved my army list slightly. But my goal was to build and paint that army in the time given to me, and also pick models that I liked, and I did that, and so. Yeah,
you're chasing an experience.
It's chasing experience.
Yeah, over an outcome necessarily, right?
And yeah, getting to play with 200 people, and everyone's like painted, and everyone's traveled in, and so yeah, it was a good time. There wasn't any salty people or anything. So that's really what it needs to be about at the end of the day. So
yeah. Well said. Mm-hmm. So what do you guys think about your own hobbies or the hobby in general? Do you think we're onto something here, or do you feel like we're way off base? Do you like the changes that they've made? More pushing buttons, standing on objectives versus like, chasing cinematic moments, big explosions, and sort of like big things like that happen in the game. Like, what's your preference when you play a game? Are you more hobby first, then game as an end cap, or are you more gaming, oriented, and then the hobby's just something you have to do to get to the game? Mm-hmm. Tell us in the comments. We'll hopefully comment that in a future video. I'm actually collecting comments and probably going to do an FAQ at some point, which would be a lot of fun.
We have enough comments.
Yeah,
maybe.
And if you add us on Patreon, you can actually submit ideas for videos and ask us questions directly on there too. So that's an advantage. So like and subscribe. We appreciate it a lot.
Thanks.
Until next time.
Bye.
Take care.